In society around the world, not only in America, but around the world, one of the things that creates a sense of authority is that people get famous doing something. Since they're famous doing something, their fame makes people feel that they're authorities. Now, in some cases, they also may be authorities. But Nikola Tesla and Edison were both working in the field of electricity and power, how to power things at the same time. But Edison is credited with creating the light bulb. The creation of the light bulb had a wide-ranging effect. It wasn't just that the thing that he proved to be true helped something in Indiana. So with the fact that the light bulb worked came fame, because everybody in America now was getting light bulbs. So what people feel generally is Edison was a special being. It was Edison, the being he was, that created the success, whereas his sense of an authority came from the fact that he created one little thing. He did other things too, I'm not saying that. But he created one little thing that made him famous. He wouldn't have been less accomplished if only he made it for his own house. But he wouldn't have been famous, and through his fame and authority. So if you ask people in general, they may never even heard of Tesla, but if they had, they know he was a guy who had some kind of wild ideas. Now, the placement of electricity in people's houses so that they could burn those electric lights and that they could do other things, now have machines which would run on electric power rather than gasoline or wood fire or other things. People generally don't know that Edison was absolutely positively wrong about how to implement electric lines into homes because he thought it should be done with direct current, DC. That's the kind of current you get from a battery. direct current. Tesla created the use of AC, alternating current. Now, what I'm really talking about is that nothing comes from something implanting in a being a magic woofer dust that makes them the creator of something. There's a reality that some people know. They don't usually know it across the board, but they know in their realm of activity and behavior. And that is that everything that exists because of process. Nothing exists because of magic sparks of talent. Now, surgeons know this. Rocket scientists know this. Engineers putting up buildings know this. That their field only is able to be successful because of process. It's exactly the same thing in anything anybody tries to do. When Newton wrote the laws of gravity, which apply to the Earth, and by extension, some of those laws apply to how the planets move in a solar system and how all of the stars in a galaxy revolve around the center and so forth. But as they have found out, gravity cannot be explained in terms of movements in the universe. It's a local law. It's not a universal recognition. But what people don't recognize across the board is that heart surgeons recognize in medicine everything is process. If they have a Bentley and it has a problem, they don't try to fix it. They take it to the Bentley service department because they realize fixing that car is process. They don't know the process, so they don't do it or take it to somebody else who has an opinion about it. But very few people, even those who know that their area works because of process, by this has to be done, then that has to be done, then that has to be done, then that has to be done. You can't do the fourth thing second, or it will invalidate the working of the process. But even those people who in their own area recognize the supremacy of process, don't realize that is true with making ice cream. They think Ben and Jerry came up with inventions. They think a home run hitter in baseball is talented. No, there is a process that causes the ball to go over the fence. And if you don't do every element of that process, no matter how hard you hit it, it won't go over the fence. Because it is the process that causes the ball to go over the fence, not the person. Even the idea of what makes a genius is that the genius has something that nobody else does. That's totally not what the reality is. A genius is somebody who discovers the process. Now, the problem, certainly in American culture, is that, as I was talking before, people do something, like Edison with the light bulb got very famous. They do a movie that people like, so they get famous. And the people in general mistake fame for authority. They go with the childhood thinking, magical thinking, that these people have a magical thing called talent. Everything that Stanislavski discovered and developed, and everything that Lee Strasberg formalized and systematized of that Stanislavski work is 100% process. And through it, anyone operating that process in recognition of all the steps of the process, who gives themselves over to, I have to do step 2 before I do step 3, you're going to have the proper result. So it has absolutely nothing to do with, in the midst of it, I had a bright idea. We do this, then we do this. The recognition that everything in existence operates on process, people in general have no idea of. They think a good idea comes to somebody. It's not what happens. We have alternating current because another guy who was not as famous and who, by the way, Edison did everything to try to destroy his career because Edison wanted all of the money. Now, this is the immense benefit to humanity of the recognition that everything that exists and works through process. Takes the onus off everybody to do anything because of their talent or lack of it. I just can do it. That means if a girl who wanted to be a mother and homemaker hadn't been taught to cook, and she got married, and her husband was somebody to whom food was very important in his enjoyment of life, look at the problem she has. She never told him she couldn't cook. It didn't come up. Now they're married, and he wants her to be able to cook. That's a problem. So people not understanding that process rules everything say, I'm just not a good cook. The elements that made me, I am not a good cook. I don't have cooking talent. Absolutely is not the circumstance. The circumstance is nobody taught her to cook. The Art Institute, some actors I knew went there and did nude modeling for drawing, sketching classes. That whole process is done. It's absolutely total process. Look at what you see, number one. Don't look at it like you're wandering down the street and you glance into the park. Look at it and analyze it. What is size of this in comparison to the thing that's right next to it? And what is the line of that in comparison to the thing that's right next to it? And can I see that first? Then can I take my hand and a sketching pencil and copy it onto a piece of paper? Process. Total process. Absolutely nothing to do with talent. Absolutely nothing to do with intelligence. Absolutely nothing to do with anything except a normal ability to hold a pencil, move it, and put it down on a piece of whatever you're sketching onto, and do the process. Then from that, nobody starts out with either water paint or oil in those schools because they want you to be able with your hand to control your instrument. And a sketching pencil lays down a line where the line itself has no movement. The lead in the pencil or the chalk that they use or whatever it is that they're using doesn't run across the page if they put too much of it on there, because you can't put too much of it on there. The amount that you put on when you bring the thing down the page is constant. But paint is not constant. So if you take a brush, which also is not constant because the brush moves from side to side, the tip of the sketching pencil does not move from side to side. But what isn't constant is anything that's liquid. So I have to train myself and prove to myself that I can lay down something with a constant line that looks like what I'm trying to copy. That white thing over there with the two switches on it. Now I'm going to try to sketch that. That's what they do when they're sketching a nude model. The process of the little girl who gets married and can't cook, of her being able to satisfy her home situation in a way that she is not under pressure and the husband is satisfied, is to learn to cook. And to learn to cook is not, let me throw in things where I feel it. Now, what is the end result? If everybody recognizes that every single thing is done by process, all they have to do is not be somebody different, the one who the talent guide sprinkle Hoover dust on. No, they just have to learn what the process is. Anybody who gives themselves over to process and gets their own ego out of the question can accomplish what that process is intended to accomplish. And in general, people have no recognition that that is true, and then their lives are full of conflicted circumstances within themselves and with other people because they don't know it's true, and therefore they don't do it. And the main interference in the human being with submitting yourself to process is the idiocy of the human ego structure. I'm somebody special. I'm famous. So I get to talk about politics, which I know nothing about. Opinions are worthless. Opinions are assessment corrupted by feeling, so they're worthless. Marriages. Some people just run off to a justice of the peace. Some people, their cousin gets, by the state of Minnesota, the ability to marry people. So they go to their cousin and give it. But with a lot of marriages, people go to a religious institution to which they belong or in which they believe. And they go to talk to the rabbi or talk to the preacher or talk to the priest pre-married. And the priest or the rabbi or the preacher makes it that they have to go talk to him before he will do the ceremony. That's process. But they stop at the process there. When they go in to talk, now everybody just chats, talks. Oh, you know, in marriage, you got a lot of responsibilities and you're supposed to help the other person out. And everybody, oh, yes, we're for that. However, if the people going into marriage, somebody says, I see your husband's to be, your fiance's in the Navy. That means he's going to be away from you at sea on duty. They don't go out for 6 weeks. We have submarines in the Pacific that come back every 9 months or every year. So the guy doesn't say, listen, one of the joys of marriage is the intimacy that is attained through sexual connection. And they wouldn't know it, but if they did know it, they would say, and like Shakespeare, making a beast, a single beast with two back. The joining together is a religious reality in a lot of the religions. How do you like that if you're the bride? Make them think how they like it. Make them face themselves. Say, listen, how important to you is that? Now, I'm now playing the priest or rabbi or whatever. Now, I'm not asking you to tell me, but these days in society accepts some sharing of these joys before marriage. Now, you're to be married 2 months from today. How would you feel about stopping any of this sharing of the joys of marriage for 2 months? Will you do that? Well, why do I have to do that? You say, no, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm asking you, how would you like doing that? Would you like it? Would it be not important to you? Or would you really miss it? And lead her to be honest with herself, whether she would miss it or not. And I don't mean miss it like I didn't get an ice cream cone today and I wanted one, but miss it like my life is not, I can't take it. My life is not livable anymore without this. Now, he asked the husband, once she's had to contemplate not doing it for 2 months. I'm talking about hugging and making spoons and having sex. I'm talking about everything that grows out of the sexual intimacy of the people. So you ask her, not to tell you, but you would ask her, or if I'm the guy, I would ask her, think about what it would mean to you if for the next 2 months you stopped until after your marriage. Well, she don't want to do it. So now you ask the husband, I see you're in the Navy. Are you a seaman or? No, I graduated from college, so I'm a Lieutenant JG. He says, well, that's the lowest grade of officer, right? I would say, I'm not trying to take you down. It's the officer who takes all of the orders from every other officer, correct? That's your level. He'd say, yes, of course. So then I would say, well, the Navy has boats, right? He would laugh and say, yeah, of course. Well, are you likely to be stationed on a boat? Well, I'm in the Navy. That's what we do. Well, you're already in the Navy. To what are you billeted? Well, I'm on an aircraft carrier. Where are you? Well, I'm in San Diego. I see. Well, how long have you been on the aircraft in San Diego? Well, that was my first billet after initial training. And so that's where I intend to be and where the Navy intends for me to be because they've trained me for this for some time. Fine. Well, you don't sleep on the aircraft carrier, do you? No, my wife and I, our house is, so I'm, 45 minutes drive away. So night I go home. Well, what's going to happen with that aircraft carrier? Just going to stay the rest of its life in San Diego Harbor? Well, no. When I joined it, it had been there for 9 months. It's usually kept in dock for a year and then it's put back to seas. Oh, I see. Okay. When you're put to seas, what are you out for? 6 weeks? And he would laugh. Say, I know you're teasing me now. No, we're put out for 9 months to a year every time. What do you mean put out? You're put out to go between San Diego and Los Angeles, back and forth? No, we're put out to the South China Sea for 9 months to a year. The Navy does not tell us how long we're going to be gone for until the boat is moving, because these are all orders which are kept under security, because we don't want any of the countries who may oppose us to know how long we're out there for. We're not going to say. Well, generally speaking, it's usually 9 months to a year. Now he turns to the wife. Now, I asked you before to consider how important a thing of your life to give up for 2 months. Any connection that you have enjoyed previously, you wouldn't want to give that up for 2 months. What are you going to do for 9 months to a year? Now, what I'm doing is a process. And it's a process that none of these people who are in charge of doing that process do. They come in and they chat and they say, what are your plans? And have you picked a honeymoon place? And we wish you best wishes. The whole process of premarital connection to their future is skipped over. So the guy gets in the Navy, the South China Sea, for 3 months. His wife has girlfriends, so she has some connection with other people. After he's there for 5 months, she really feels, Jesus, my life is so empty. When I got married, I thought I'd have a man in my life. So she plays tennis, and she plays with the girls usually, but sometimes the girls can't go, so she goes to these places where men and women are all there. Usually it's things to meet, but she's not really going to meet because she's married. So somebody's very charming. When the guy's very charming, the first thing that happens is that thing inside her, which has felt like an empty closet since the husband went to sea, now 5 months ago. She's had an empty closet. Now the guy hangs a nice little dress in there. One nice little dress, because he's charming with her. She doesn't see him for 2 weeks because the next 2 weeks she plays with the girls. But the week after that, she's back and the guy happens to be there. He's there and he's playing with the 3 other guys. And so she kind of watches him play a little. And then she gets involved in something which is mixed men and women. And so she gets to play too. But he kind of hangs around and she kind of hangs around. And so he says, look, you didn't eat before you came to play, did you? Well, let's go get some lunch. And when they're at lunch, after they eat, she says, oh, Jesus, I'm dying for a banana split. If I eat a banana split, I'll blow up like a blimp. And she's not saying that for compliments. She's saying that because that's how she feels, because she's so concerned about how her body looks. He says, if there's anybody at the whole tennis court who wouldn't be hurt by having a banana split, it's you. So I think you're in fear of a thing that is not going to happen. I'm not trying to force a banana split down you, believe me. But when I look at you across the net, when you're serving to me, I notice that there's a girl who could have a banana split. It wouldn't hurt her. So now in her closet, he has hung a second outfit. She had an empty closet for 5 months, but now it's 6 months. It has a couple of things in there. So they start to, he likes to ride bikes and she likes to ride bikes, so they meet to ride bikes now. And they find out that they like meeting to ride bike better than playing tennis. 2 people riding bikes says, can you ride at 9 in the morning? Yeah, let's go. And if he came up with the idea that why don't we ride bikes instead, and we can stop at that little place where you like to get coffee. Maybe we could have a quiet picnic in the park. She's telling herself the whole time, I'm riding bikes, what the hell? But what she's doing is buying into the relationship deeper. Why does all of this happen? Because the person who they talked to before the marriage didn't fulfill his process. In my little story, it gets to be 11th month. The husband sends home a letter and it will be home within a month. Hi, honey. Happy Christmas. Except a little tennis and then the bicycle riding and then the lunches in the park. The two are now lovers. Her imaginary closet is now full of things, including sexy underwear and other things. The point is, none of that would have happened if the person who is in charge of the process had done it. He gets a message saying, you've been away so long, I was so lonely. It's hard to tell you, but I met someone else. I can't remember what year, but I think it's in the last 10 years. The majority of divorces exceeded the level of marriages. And in addition, the majority of divorces are sought by women. Process would have headed all that off at the pass. Now, when people give themselves over to process and let the process go, they will achieve the thing that the process is intended to achieve. So 75% of their life's antagonisms disappear. It's not, I don't know how to cook, so it always comes out bad. No. If it's important to you, learn the process. Then it won't come out bad. Then you won't be carrying around all the time, well, I can't really cook. But the processes are immutable. The process carries the ball. Everything that exists because of process.